Hey, I'm Shelly.
And I'm Angela.
And this is Real Talk Dating Exposed,
where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of dating in your 40s. Okay, today we have a very special guest, Fuentes, mental performance coach. You've been doing this, I feel like, forever. Before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do.
So I'm a mental performance coach. A lot of people, in fact, the other day, you were very gracious to call me a lot of different things, all nice. Some people call me things that aren't so nice, but man, I mean, I've been doing this now for 20 years and I work with anyone and everyone that wants to rewire their brain, change their emotional construct, change their mind or how they address life or business or personal or relationships or dating, just like we're here for today. It's really been beautiful. I developed a system that specifically helps people rewire their own brain. I don't help them. They help themselves, which is really key. I put them in the driver's seat and they do it. And that's what's really cool and unique is everyone owns their own success. I just hold a space that allows that. And so, now, so 20 years in and I've seen a lot of beautiful things and watched a lot of people do amazing things for themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think one thing that I'm really excited about and we're excited about today is you're going to be able to kind of peel back any society pressure, expectations that maybe we're not even aware of that affects our relationships and our dating. So I'm excited to kind of jump into what it is that you have to share. But I would say that that's the biggest thing is you're going to be able to teach us, hey, we were conditioned this one way to think this particular way, but that's actually not truth.
Yeah, we come with a lot of baggage, especially the older we get, the more baggage we collect and really trying to, first recognizing it. Some people don't even realize their blind spots or what they're creating or the partnerships or the dates they're creating.
Yeah.
And that's really tough because you get frustrated because you just feel like either you're broken or they're broken, everyone else is broken. And it can get very discouraging, especially in your 40s or above. And this is something that is challenging, but you can unwind the mind and understand and look at things from a different perspective. And that's a really important thing to do because if you don't, you will continue
just
to
keep that cycle going.
Yes, you will. And it sucks.
Yeah. I always say if the problem keeps happening, you're the common denominator. So you got to figure it out. Okay. We're just going to address the elephant in the room here. You've been divorced 3 times. What's wrong with you?
Well, you see, I wasn't always somebody who had a more calm and centered disposition. I was a ridiculous, crazy person. And, like you said, we're conditioned. And you said in another podcast that, everything that we are today is programmed when we're children. And for me, it was very understandable. I struggled. My mom was just doing the best she could, but most of the time she was a single mom and couldn't give me what I was looking for. And then I was in a town where I was the only Latino kid and couldn't get a date. And so I had this dysfunction with women and receiving love or getting love from people and feeling rejected all the time. So I was desperate for love and kept jumping into relationships, giving and creating problems because I was also very angry, very dysfunctional. And so I was a mess. I was lost in my own stuff, desperate for love, and just kept trying over and over and over. And it wasn't until I really started working on myself and becoming whole within myself that I realized that what I was seeking was the internal love in seeing myself, loving myself, knowing myself. And that's when everything got fixed. Unfortunately, there's 3 beautiful women out there that have felt the dysfunction of my life. The wrath, the wake of, but it is what it is. And I didn't know any better at the time. Yeah. So I don't have shame around it. I'm appreciating now that I understand it. But I really was doing the best I could. As much of an asshole as I was.
Yeah. It's all part of the journey, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's one big thing you've taught me, and I'm sure you as well, which is like own that part of your journey and don't feel shame around it. Cause we've all done things where you're like, who the hell was I? You know what I mean? And like, what the fuck was I thinking? And, being able to just look at that as part of the story, I think has been huge in my progression. So thank you for that. And now a question coming from me. How do I hack the dating apps? Today's day and age, it's like, that's the way of the world, but it doesn't always resonate with some of us. So how do we hack that?
What's very interesting, because I've worked with quite a few clients on this, and I've actually sat with clients and I said, tell me what you see and what they're seeing in each picture or image. And, you guys talked about with Kat, this concept of the quick swiping and all the different emotions that go into it. For me, it's about, what do you see in yourself and what are you really looking for beyond just the physical? In fact, there is a human attraction that we have, and there's a soul attraction that we have. To get to the soul attraction, which is something that was really an amazing discovery for me personally, I had to really understand what I was doing on the human level and fix that. And so when I started doing the soul attraction work, where I understand what my soul really wanted, that's when the images and the pictures and then reading between the lines on the dating apps were really important. There's a lot of people trying really hard on there, and you can take that for what it's worth. But the reality is what are their eyes saying? That's one thing I start with. Tell me what their eyes are saying. And you have to really see enough people on there to look at their eyes to see and understand, do they have kind eyes? Mm-hmm. What are they saying in their profile? What are they like? What are they not like? For most women, if the person's not that exciting, I would say take another look at them, because most of the time we are wanting this thing that really stands out to us, but that's also the extremeness in men that we don't end up liking when we date them.
Yeah.
And most of the guys that are more connected and more whole within themselves aren't going to be flashy. They're not going to talk about all the things they do. Mm-hmm. So you're really going to have to look at more into the eyes, into the kindness. Are their pictures natural or just some basic pictures? And you're like, this guy has 3 pictures and one of them's him in the woods. And another one's his, just the picture of the woods themselves. Like, this is like not a person for me. But if you see that picture where he's just looking at the camera very kindly, that's
what
something
you're looking for.
Yeah.
Look in the eyes. We never talked about looking in the eyes.
No.
How do you feel about that?
Well, a lot of people are wearing sunglasses, so I feel like that's what are you hiding? Yeah. What are you hiding?
Yeah. In fact, one of the people that I did, they're married now. And it was constant, like disaster after disaster. And then we switched up their mindset. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say to someone who's constantly attracting the same type of person? Is it a them problem?
Problem is a pretty strong word. It's a them frequency or vibration of where they're at. I liken it to, they're on the floor of the hotel that they're just stuck on. And what that means is when you are on a specific floor of a hotel, you're really only going to see the people that are in the rooms as you walk by. No one's that's on the 15th floor is going to be on the 7th floor, because that's not their floor. So, you have to be able to start to raise your vibration, have more value and self-worth for yourself. And the more you do that, the more you'll be able to recognize somebody else who has a higher vibration, more value and self-worth. You can't date a fixer-upper. And that's a big deal. Women or even men, no fixer-uppers. I'm telling you.
We're not here fixing people.
We think that, we see
the
potential, and we date the potential, not the reality. And that's a challenge, but it can be tough, because you're like, wow, like nobody's perfect. But there are people that are far enough along on their journey that they got a good foundation to them.
Yeah.
And so if you raise your own vibration, if you raise your value or your self-worth, you're going to now be able to identify in others, and that will break the cycle. You'll start attracting those type of people. You'll quickly say no to the people that don't resonate. And all that does is keep then filtering better or higher vibrational people to you.
Do you think that you can do that while you're dating? Can you raise your frequency and your vibration while you're dating? Or do you think that you have to take a step out of the game, do a little refresh, reboot, and then get back in?
It's tough while you're doing it. You can get the context, but if we're stuck in the loop and then we can't say no and we're in dick sand, to reference one of your old podcasts, then it's really hard to raise your vibration.
Yeah.
So if you can really see it as learning and understanding and really getting texture and then doing something with that to evolve yourself, great. But if not, and you can get stuck in things, then yes, take a step
little
back,
step. Yeah.
raise your vibration, reset yourself, and then re-engage.
I think that's one of the biggest things I learned with you is you don't have to be at this like destination to then do this, right? It can be both. But to your point, I think if you're repeating that cycle, it's harder to get out of it. Take a little break,
Reset.
get back to yourself, do the therapy, do the meditations, do the reading, do the journaling, maybe get back to the gym, pick up a healthy habit, do you for a little bit, and then get back in, continue all of that. And also give yourself grace and love during those times. And you might relapse every now and then, but I think the whole point is to identify it sooner and have that self-awareness to say, oh, I'm doing it again. This is where I need to have those boundaries and the self-love to be able to walk away and then get back in.
Yeah, you talk about self-love and that's important, but also just the grace that we give ourselves. We are beautiful humans. The reason why we can look back at our past and go, wow, like that was us. It's just, we did the best we could. But even now, like if we can separate our humanness, our mental construct, which is our programming and then how we interpret the world, from who we are as a being, then it gives us a chance to go, oh, that's just my programming. Like I'm looking at this person this way, or I'm acting this way, or I chose to step into something that I know doesn't honor me. It's okay. Let's take a step back. And what do I want on a soul level? What do I want on a deeper heart level? What do I want from a deeper desire? And then if you can give yourself that grace, you don't feel like this is just me, I'm stuck, I'm broken, or this world's messed up. You don't give up mentally. You go, hey, it's normal. I'm human. But then with the space comes the action of self-love. And yes, you can do self-care, which is the nails and the hair, massages and the facials. All that's beautiful. And you can create self-love within that if you are understanding that it's loving and nurturing yourself. But simple actions of self-love, which would be give yourself space and time to just breathe into yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and work on even the mental rejections. We all look in the mirror and go, I don't like this or I don't like that. Understand that and then go, it's okay. Like, it's okay where I'm at. I want to lovingly go to another level and that's okay too. Water, giving yourself enough water is an act of self-love. Just simple functional things to love on yourself, to nurture yourself in functional and physical actions will give you an idea of even then now how do you want somebody else to treat you? Because if we're not treating ourselves well, then we're not going to pick somebody that treats us well.
Yeah,
I agree.
Do that. Yeah.
Speaking of love, you have mentioned that sex is the path to enlightenment. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's one of the paths to enlightenment. There's several. Food is one. Relationships, just being in relationship with somebody is a path to enlightenment. But sex is a big one of the biggest. And the reason why is because typically with sex, especially over time, it's become this thing that is dysfunctional and people with the lights off in the bedroom, or it's been tied to even things like cheating or wrong or even religious constructs around it, which all of that is just what it is. But the reality is whatever scenario you're in with sex, it's about you finding the connection to your own body. And oftentimes when we're in sex, we're thinking about the other person, or we're thinking about how we're looking, or we're thinking about all these other things. Then let me let go and fully feel myself. And that's the goal. And you have to get past all the human dysfunctions or emotions or constructs around it. But if you can let go and you can start to go, what feels good to me? What do I want from me? And that other person is doing the same thing for them. The sex is really profound because you're both in your superpower of connectedness to yourselves. And then naturally the connection with each other is just amazing. And you're free and there's no limitations and there's no shame and there's no judgment or awkward. But man, it's tough. So it takes a lot of work.
In what world does that become the norm?
How do you get to that space?
Or even your partner. What if you're there and then you're like, but my partner is like not, he's very self-serving or,
now we're talking about alignments between two people and
totally.
Who do you have and what does that look like? But just how do you get there yourself, especially for women? A lot of the women that I coach, I don't get into details just so we're clear, but I talk to them about, hey, go discover yourself. Most women don't even take the time to discover themselves. What pleasures do they like? What things or sensations or opportunities feel good to them? Because that's something that they just don't think about.
Yeah.
And they don't want to spend the time, or they don't have the time to do that. So ultimately, for anyone, especially women, to discover themselves in their own privacy with toys and tools and even just their own hands. What do you like? What resonates with you? And then when you're with your partner, open up more to that. That's a huge thing that can be done. And then for me personally, I'm a pleaser. And so I have to allow myself to receive. And even men in general, they're like, what am I doing? How good am I making this person feel?
I think that's their actual voice.
Yeah. That's the voice in my head. Hey, are you doing a good job? You making this person feel good? And versus going, what am I feeling? Men, how many men go, hey, what am I feeling in general, let alone in the bedroom?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. It's a little different because men just are really don't get as deep into what am I feeling on a total level. They just know what their junk is feeling, but nothing else. And so that's been really amazing to fully let go and to be in my own self. And I'd encourage men to do the same thing.
Do you coach men through that also? Or is it harder for men to?
Less men, more women because of that. But quite honestly, most of the guys that I'm working with we're working with a lot of either high level business, because I work with a lot of high net worth people, overall self-love, overall self-connection. And it's not an area that typically comes up.
Yeah.
And I don't drive the coaching. The coaching is driven by where they're at, what they're working on, or what they want to focus on. And so it's not like I'm saying, hey, have we talked about
this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I hear you have a secret.
I do?
Secret to how to manifest the right partner.
Oh.
Tell us all.
Wow. So I'm not sure it's so much a secret, but there's some specific kind of boundaries that you want to have for yourself. Is one, we already said it, no fixer-uppers. And in order to do that, you have to be able to work on yourself and know who you are, know where you're at, to at least have somebody that can match where you're at in your growth, in your journey, in your love of self, or in your personal desires. Because if you find somebody that's a match, they'll want that for themselves. The biggest secret would be to getting somebody in your life is to meditate every day and think about who that person is and what they bring to you, and then allow that into your life. Allowing versus trying to go figure it all out. It doesn't mean don't take action or don't do the dating apps or don't go on dates. It really means to allow yourself to be patient, allow yourself to hold to standards that really honor you, not egoic standards that, just I want them to be this tall just for the sake of that, but just standards that, like, are they a good person? Do they bring more light into the experience like I do? Well, start checking yourself on all these things. Meditate on how you want to show up and how you want to see somebody else in your life show up. And that's what will attract that. So secret, maybe, because I doubt people are waking up every day and first and foremost visualizing and seeing that person. But more importantly then, do I bring those qualities? Am I vibrating at that level? And then challenge yourself to vibrate at that level.
Yeah, I love that. I can't remember if you were the one that told me to do this. But there were periods of my life where, you feel lonely, right? But you can almost fill that loneliness with the imagination of that partner. I remember there were times where I'd be on my morning walks and just thinking, like, I wish that I had my person here. And so as a creep, or maybe not creep, I would like close my eyes and pretend that I was like holding their hand and like engaging in stimulating conversation. And it's two things. It's one, doing what you're saying, right? Creating that experience, even though it's not really there, but creating it so then our body just takes that on as a new memory. but also fills that void of that loneliness. And it teaches us as a human to give us what we need, right? Because I think that oftentimes people in the dating world are looking for that next person to fill that void or do this for them. I will be happy when I have this. And it's not that. You know?
When we're looking at anyone in our lives, friend, family, or someone we're dating especially, to fill a void, that is a recipe for disaster, because then you're going to put a lot of pressure on them, a lot of pressure on the relationship in order for you to feel X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And so when you're in loneliness, sit in it. Allow yourself to understand why you're not enough for yourself. Because that's the thing. That would happen to me after my last divorce. I was so excited to be alone. And then I get alone and then I'm like, I feel lonely.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait. I'm like, I'm not going to be with anybody ever again. I'm so excited to be alone. And then I'm alone and I'm like, this sucks. And I don't like the loneliness feeling I'm feeling. And so then I had to really get quiet and listen. And what was it? And realizing, like, if we're lonely and I was lonely, it's because I wasn't enough for myself. And so first feeling that with my own self, and then the step of imagining that person and imagining what you want and imagining what that's going to bring you. And the clearer you can get and how that feels, the feeling is everything. Not just what you think the marks checks the boxes, but what you feel. The more you meet people, the more you go, hey, does that feel like that thing? And it's like, oh, nope, nothing wrong with them, or it's okay, they're good person, or maybe it's not somebody I would ever be interested in, but I'm okay because I'm just waiting for that experience that I've been practicing and training.
Love that.
Yeah, I think after my divorce, it was 3 years before I started dating again. And I remember sitting on the couch the first year when he moved out and how uncomfy that was, right? And I remember telling myself, like, I'm going to sit with this until it doesn't feel this way anymore. And it took me a long time, and obviously there was still so much work to be done after that. But this leads to my next question, is that when I did start dating again, showing up authentic is super important. How do you recommend people do that? Not that I was ever showing up inauthentic, but I think guarded makes you inauthentic in some ways, right? Like, you're not just showing up your best self when you do get back out there. How do you ensure that on that date, like, no matter who it is or who you're in front of, that you're okay being who you are and like showing that?
Yeah, it's a little tricky because you don't necessarily want to say, hey, here's all the things that I want and here's all the things that I don't want, because most people will then be like, well, cool, like I can fit those, versus organically discovering that. So it is tricky because you think authentic would mean like, here's who I am, here's what I'm about, here's what I want, here's what I don't want, here's what I'm looking for, here's where I'm not. But again, so many people are really wanting to make things work and unintentionally then just like choosing to fit those little spaces and boxes. And so I would say that just being in yourself, knowing who you are, not really focusing on how the person's responding to who you are. That's authenticity. Is like, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care how you see me. All I care about is, what energy am I showing up with? Am I centered? Am I feeling happy with who I am? Am I curious? Am I playful? Am I fun in this moment with you? And if I'm doing all those things because that's who I am, then that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm not like holding back a personality trait, or I'm not going to, if you're funny, you're funny. And if you just let yourself be funny, great. But if you're just like, oh, I'm going to be a little shy or a little timid, that's definitely inauthentic. I'm going to hold back because I don't know this person yet. So I'm going to hold back some of my personality. That's inauthentic. So if you just say, hey, I want to learn who I am, I want to get to know myself, and I want to keep showing up consistently in order to do that. And then just show up in the personality, in the love, in the trust, in the beingness of who you are for you. And then however that person sees it or receives it, they do. That's the authenticity we're talking about, more than the roadmap of here's what I like, here's what I don't like.
Yeah.
That'll all come out over time.
Yeah.
So many good nuggets in our part 1. So we're going to wrap this up and then we'll jump into part 2. Thank you so much for being on the show with us. Before we get into part 2 though, where can people find you?
I have a website, alfuentes.com. Okay. I've had it for a long time. So yeah, that's an Instagram at the.alfuentes, because Alfuentes was taken.
The one and only Al.
The one and only.
Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And if you aren't following us on all platforms, go give us a like and follow.
Thanks so much.